Alright guys, let's finally change the knives on my Brother Lock Serger 1034D. This is the guts. This is what it looks like. We've all seen this. I typically like to take my loop turner and go in there and pull out any long threads. It's going to be dusty in here because I've never actually taken my machine apart. So first step, we're going to hit this little lever here to remove this needle arm. There is a little spot on your machine to put this, but I just keep everything in the bin that comes with the machine so that I don't lose anything. Next, we're going to take off the foot so that we can take off this needle plate. There's only one screw here, so we're going to unscrew this and then just lift the plate off. So we're just going to spend some time here taking the needle plate off. It is really easy. My tip for this section would be to keep your screws together. At one point in this process, I did get a little confused on which screw went with which piece of the serger. So I would just make sure you put like your screw back in the hole so you can keep it together. This is what your needle plate looks like. I just kind of dust it off to make sure I get all the dust off. That's what it looks like now at this step. Also, make sure you take off that like top piece so that you can have access to this here. The next step is to take out this screw. It took me over an hour to get this screw out, so be really patient. They said be patient, but be even more patient than you think you need to be, because this one right here had me ready to not change my knives. It took me a while, but I finally got it out. So we're just going to pull this little knob off once you get the screw out. It was really easy to just pop the knob off. The next step is we have to take out this screw in here. I did struggle a little bit to pull the screw out once I got it unscrewed, but I kind of had the help of my magnet to help pull it out. But again, this screw took a little bit of patience to get out. But once you got it out, you're good. So the next step is we're going to just pull this off, just kind of wiggle it. Expect to see dust bunnies central, like all of the fabric threads that you thought you cleaned out but didn't. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Next, just a little bit of maintenance. I took a paintbrush and started to just dust everything off, trying to get it all out of the little crevices. These things will just help your machine run better in general. So it just took a little while to get them all dusted. I did use my air gun a few, but my air gun was running out. So I was stuck with just wiping and using my paintbrush to kind of clean this. And here's to the part that we've all been waiting for, the knives. So that's the upper and the lower. This screw also very hard to get out. It took me at least 20 minutes, and I called my husband to help. I tried to use a drill. Bruh. Nothing. Yeah. But I found this screwdriver and it worked. And finally worked. You can hear me in the background with my excitement. These are my replacement knives. What I would do, don't do what I did. Take a picture of how your knives are. I took both of my knives off. Here, you can see they're not on there. And here, you see me putting my knife on upside down. Yeah. So, don't do that. Make sure you put your knife the right way. That angle corner should be on top. So yeah, this isn't right, and I found out all the way after I put the whole machine back together, as you will see. But you're just going to put the lower end first, and then the loop, the one that's kind of a curved hook knife, and then once you get those in, you know, kind of tighten them up. And then you're going to start the process of putting your machine back together. It was really that simple once you got the pieces off. But here you just see me tightening it up, even though it is wrong. And you see me starting the process of putting it back together. So once I kind of got the screws in, I turned the wheel to kind of make sure things looked kind of right to what I remember seeing all the time. And then that's when I officially started the process of putting the pieces back together. So I just slid this cover back on. It kind of like pops into place. And then you're going to start putting your screws back in. So I start with putting in the lower screw and getting that super tight in there. It takes a little bit to get the screw like into the hole and get it tightened. Then you're going to take your knob, slide that back on, and then put that screw back in. It was a lot easier going in than it was coming out. And then you're going to slide the cover back on. I actually didn't show you me taking this off, but you know, you just pop it on. And it was a little off, but like once I pushed it, it was cool. So I started to put the needle arm back in, but this was too soon. I realized that and I took it back off, and you just push that little button where the two arrows join to get it in and out. You can't really see it, but there's a button right there below that yellow arrow, and I was like, no, that has to come back out. So eventually I just hit the button to take that piece back out before putting the needle plate in. So yeah, you just hit the button, pop it out. So once you get the plate back in, like this is probably the easiest part of it all, putting the needle plate back on, screwing it in tight. You're gonna put the like thread tongue piece here, put that back in just by pushing that little lever down there and sliding it in, and it just kind of pops right in there. And ta-da, or what I thought was ta-da. So you'll see me putting my pressure fit back on. I did not take out my needles, but a lot of people suggested that, but I did not. I hate taking out the needles, so only when necessary. So again, just wiping off all the rest of the dust on the machine, super dusty. I went ahead and threaded, and this is when I found out that my lower knife was not on correctly. So here's just a, a little sped up version of me threading it. I needed white thread for my next project, so I was like, well, no better time than the present to go ahead and prep the machine since I'm changing the knives. So we get the two needles threaded in the upper and lower loopers, and then I just reached over for some like scrap fabric to test it out, and you can see here coming up that the fabric was not cutting like at all whatsoever. It just like bunched up. It was like, no ma'am. And I thought maybe I turned the knife off, but no, it was on wrong. So I had to go back in and change it. As you can see here, the lower knife is upside down, and I had to go back in, take it out, screw it back in. I also had to take out the upper knife a bit because you couldn't get it in there without it getting in the way. So eventually I just had to take it apart again. I didn't film the entire process of doing it because at that point it was late, and I was just like, y'all, what had happened? Like, why didn't I check this before? I'm gonna say check your work. That's gonna be my tip for this part of the journey. Check your knives, take pictures of what it looks like before you put it all back together, because the thing you don't want to do is what I had to do, which was take it all apart. But yeah, just adjusting the tension, and I'm like moving the mechanisms just to make sure it was kind of like rubbing for a second. So I didn't want that to happen. So I actually got the knives back in, put the needle plate back on, the thread tongue back into the machine, and then fix the threads again, get the flip back on once we got it re-threaded, and retried to serge a scrap piece of fabric to make sure that it was working. Threading those lower loopers can be tedious, man, but we got it back together and we did a scrap piece of fabric, and there you have it. It's done.